Alex, can you tell me your name?
Alex.
What's your last name? What year is it? Who's the president? So this is a dramatic reenactment from the worst day of my life. 10 minutes prior to this, my husband was peeing all over my office, and he's currently, as we're having this conversation, sitting naked on a toilet, and I'm about to make the biggest mistake of the night, not calling an ambulance.
Yeah, and despite our amazing acting performance just now, I have to recognize we are starting another episode in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's where a lot of shit goes down. Hi, I'm Lauren Tassi.
Hi, I'm Alex Hooper. Welcome back to Hopefully Kidding, the podcast where when we find out that when you have a family plan, the universe has alternate plans for your timeline.
So if you're just joining us, here's a quick recap. We got married. Alex got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. We had a miscarriage. And where we last left off, Alex was staring mesmerized at a bowl of alphabet soup.
Right, which I could have been really stoned from weed, or it could have just been chemo brain. Spoiler alert, it was neither of those things.
So this episode does get pretty intense. We'll do our best to keep it light and fun where we can, but fair warning, you're about to get on the roller coaster.
Is there any episode where we won't have to do a trigger warning that won't be intense? Because, I mean, every part of this is going to be filled with inappropriate humor and really intense stories.
There's only one way to find out.
Here we go again. So there I am staring into a bowl of soup, just kind of like wondering whatever's on my brain at that point. I don't even know. Meanwhile, Lauren, we had a miscarriage 2 weeks before. I'm in my own world with cancer stuff. I'm dealing my own way with the miscarriage. But how are you feeling as the woman having to go through that awful expulsion of the fetus from your body?
Yeah, I mean, it was really rough. And I'm glad, we're bringing this up again because this is part of why we're doing this podcast, is to make infertility, make all the parts of it, even the gross, hard to talk about parts, easier to talk about and bring some light to it. Because when I was going through it at this time period, I could remember a few friends had gone through it, but it was really like these sort of hushed, whispered conversations. There was no, I was not in a place where I was like able to reach out to anyone, who wasn't immediately aware of our situation.
Why do you think people don't talk about this?
It's hard to talk about, right? To just, hey, how's it going today? Oh, I have a dead baby inside my body.
Oh, yeah. Sure, it's hard to talk about, but it is very common. We can talk about other taboo, difficult subjects, but for some reason, until you have a miscarriage and you bring it up, that's when I feel you learn people really come out and are like, oh, yeah, I had a miscarriage too. And you're like, oh, well, I didn't know that. I mean, I went to a couple friends that were like, oh, we had 3. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. He's like, yeah, we didn't talk about it either.
Well, I mean, this is not this podcast. This episode of the podcast is not the time or the place to discuss, all the issues with women's reproductive health and their rights and how we don't place enough emphasis on this. And this falls under that category. We in this country are very afraid to talk about these things, even though they're real and happening to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to how I was feeling at the time.
Right. Sorry.
It was just like really cruel timing. We're going through this, but it wasn't something I could fully process because I had to also be your caregiver and I had to, be there and take you to chemo and, pay attention to how much medicine and, just all the things you do as a caregiver while also going through the grief of it. I will say I was in therapy at the time. I had started therapy right when we found out we were pregnant, not because of it. It was because you were diagnosed. I was like, you know what, this feels like a good time to go to therapy. And I'm really grateful I did that because I was already in therapy when all of this started happening, miscarriage and everything we're about to get into. I had someone to talk to, someone to just, help me process the feelings that I usually try to avoid feeling.
Yeah, I remember I tried to sign up for therapy, but the queue to get even an appointment was going to take months. So, a lot I would learn about the medical system over the course of this period. So let's go back to where we last left off. I'm staring at a bowl of soup, foggy headed.
Yeah. And somehow I'm like, let's watch a movie. It's Saturday night. We go to watch a movie. I have a feeling you don't remember this movie at all.
No, of course. Was it Mighty Ducks 2?
No, I think you were so out of it. I was like, I'm just going to pick a movie I want to watch. And it was that movie with Harry Styles and Florence Pugh. You probably don't even know that you've seen this movie. You would actually like it.
Oh, wait. I do know that movie only because a comedian friend of mine, Asif Ali, was in it very briefly. So I do remember that. I don't remember the name of it. It took place in Palm Springs, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like spoilers to the movie. I don't think it's actually Palm Springs. It's like a Palm Springs-esque town. Don't Worry, Darling.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Olivia Wilde.
Is she in that too?
She directed it.
Yes. And then that was the breakup with her and,
yeah, my body was going wild, so I couldn't handle any of this.
yeah. So anyway, we watched a movie that night and now we're moving on to Sunday and you were basically just laying on this couch, staring up at the ceiling all day long. And I'd be like, do you want to turn on the TV? And you were just like, like you were so out of it. And I was just dying for Monday morning to come when we had this doctor's appointment scheduled to go see your oncologist.
Yeah, because it had been a really rough week. We talked about that a little bit in the last episode leading up to this point where I was kind of just checked out completely. We get to Monday morning. Now, I got to let you take over here because I have no recollection of any of this shit.
Yeah, I'm going to be, as I did that day, I am going to be guiding us through this episode.
Wonderful.
And so this is what I think at this point is definitely the worst day of my life. You know, there's been some questionable days since then, but just the length of it and the stress of it and just the roller coaster ride that it was, I think it's still right sitting up top of the list.
This beats the miscarriage?
In retrospect, yes, because the miscarriage was something that just happened to me. Like I had no decisions to make. I didn't question myself. I was never wondering if I was doing the right thing. Where this story we're about to go into was just me constantly wondering if I was doing the right thing.
Okay.
For you.
Okay. So what happens this morning?
So first up, we go to the oncologist. Our agenda for the day was to go see the oncologist, a regular routine appointment, not chemo treatment. Just, I think you were going every Monday or something to get blood work to make sure you were okay doing chemo. You were going there on a regular basis. And then we had a PET scan scheduled. And it was very important that we go to this PET scan because it would determine A, if the chemo was working, was the cancer getting smaller? And B, there was some huge backlog with these PET scans. I don't know if it was just like that time 2 years ago that like medical services were still hard to get or if it's still hard to get a PET scan.
Everyone got cancer. It was like an Oprah episode. You get cancer, and everyone needs a PET scan.
Well, there's reasons to get PET scans that aren't just cancer, but.
Okay.
Anyway, it was like very in demand and the stakes were high. We had to get to this appointment. So we go to the oncologist's office and I don't know if we mentioned it last time, but you had developed very strong, the pain in the palms of your hands and your feet had gotten really bad.
Okay.
Like you couldn't step, you couldn't walk, like that you were by Monday morning, it was hard for you to move. Like it was hard to get you in and out of the car. It was just, you were really in so much pain and it seemed you were very stiff and you were starting to swell up a bit.
Huh. Okay.
So we go to the oncologist and I'm like, dear God, please. Now there's a medical professional here who can just give you medicine or just somehow take over this. So it's no longer my responsibility to be like, hey, Alex, are you okay? What do we need to do?
Right. And someone who knows my condition, who's actively trying to help me get better.
Right. So we go to the oncologist. The main, head oncology guy, he sees you right away. We explain the pain in the hands and he's like, and basically all the symptoms that have developed over the past week. He's like, yeah, this is, probably chemo. This is, what it is. We're going to give you some painkillers. And so they gave us a prescription for Vicodin. We put that into the pharmacy. He's like, but you really should go get this PET scan. It was inconveniently not at the hospital, right? We were seeing your doctor at the hospital, but we had to go to some imaging center like 20 minutes away, which was annoying.
When he told me it was probably just a chemo symptom, did he wink at me when he said it? Our doctor, Dr. Al, he winked every single time he said something to me and I just couldn't get over the fact that I was like, is that real or are we having a secret conversation here?
Was it intentional or was it a tick?
I think it was a tick. I don't want to make fun of him for it or anything. I'm not going to, but it was always funny to me when he'd be like, stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma, wink. I'm like, okay, I guess I have it.
So back to the story.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have to talk a lot this episode, and you're just going to kind of have to.
I know.
Talk as much.
Fair enough.
So you see the oncologist, and they also decide, okay, you've got an hour. We're going to have you go see the nurse, and she's going to give you some fluids through your portacath, right? Maybe that's got to help, we have some time, go sit in the chair, and she starts to give you the fluids. At which point I pull the nurse practitioner aside, who's really the person we see every single time. We don't always see the oncologist. It's the nurse practitioner. And I say, I'm really worried. Alex seems like out of it. And they're like, yeah, I mean, it's really probably just the chemo, and he'll be better in a couple days. But his instructions at the time were ask him his name, ask him, what year it is and what the president is and who the president is. If he can't answer those questions, something is very wrong. And I believe they asked you at that appointment even that the oncologist was like, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. This must be standard procedure here.
And I nailed the test though.
You passed it at that point.
Hell yeah, dude. Way to go, Alex.
So the nurse practitioner also gave me his phone number. He was like, just if you have any questions, text me, call me. I'm here to help you guys. And they pumped you up full of fluids, and we raced off to go get the PET scan.
Okay, so I'm full of fluids. I'm probably feeling dandy. Am I coming back to life at all?
No change whatsoever.
Okay, great.
You're out of it, and where are we going? What's going on? Getting you in and out of the car is a struggle. We get over to where the PET scan is.
Wait, hang on. So what is a PET scan, and why is it so important that I do it right now when clearly I am not in a good state?
Right. Well, so the reason it's so important is to make sure the chemo's working, right? To see if your
lymph nodes are getting smaller?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So what it is I believe you drank, it was either a drink or they put it in through your portacath, but it's basically like radioactive sugar.
I don't think you drink it.
You don't drink it.
No, okay. It's not like you get it from a lemonade stand. I think they actually shoot it up there because it's like a weird like green or blue that it shows up, right? In the scan?
In the scan, I don't know that it's the same color in real life as it is in the scan, but it basically, because it's radioactive, it will, the cancer cells will eat it because it's sugar, and then the radioactivity will show up in the scan, right? And you go in a metal tube. It's like, it might even be the same machine they use for like CT scans.
It's an MRI tube, isn't it?
It's very similar. If it's not the same machine, picture an MRI machine and you're there.
Yeah, so I have this radioactive fluid in me. Do I turn into a superhero?
Definitely not. So we get to the second location. We have just like the nicest technician. They give you the radioactive fluid, but then you have to like wait for it to like enter your body for like 45 minutes. And you're just like sitting in this room, and you were so out of it. And we're like walking down a hallway, and you're just like, Lauren, where are we? What are we doing? You didn't know. And I was just like, we have to do this. Like, I was at this point, it was like, no offense, but it was like having a toddler where you're just like, this is what you have to do, and you just have to get through this. And I
don't take offense to that, but after this, can I have an apple juice, please?
Yeah.
Maybe some graham crackers. And if you could break them up for me, it'd be easier for me to eat them.
Yeah. I'll cut the grapes in half too.
Please do.
Anyway, I think he was Jamaican. He had like a very like Caribbean accent, and he was just, he was so patient with you. And I think he must see like just people at some of the worst times in their lives. And so he was like, the fact that you were in so much pain and like you wouldn't hold still. And that's part of it, is like you have to hold still so the machine can take the image. He also he kept asking me if I was pregnant. Like, it was 2 or 3 times because of the radioactive material. Like, they wouldn't want a pregnant person around it, and because of the imaging. So he would just be like, are you sure you're not pregnant? I'm like, yes, I am definitely not pregnant. I am the least pregnant I have ever been in my entire life. Good news is we got the scan done. We were able to keep you still long enough, and we got you out of there. At which point I'm now heading back. We're going to go pick up the prescription for the painkiller. I'm also like, you've barely eaten in days. Maybe I can get you to drink a milkshake. Like, you love ice cream. That's one of your favorite things in the world. So we stop somewhere as I'm like on the way to get the medicine, and I wonder if you even drank that thing.
It's funny. Healthy diet be damned at this point. Like, normally if someone is going through chemotherapy, you're like, yeah, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And you are like, chocolate chip milkshake right now, vanilla ice cream, chocolate syrup, whip it up, fat burger. Let's go.
Yeah. So,
and I didn't drink it. You don't think?
I can't remember. Maybe you did. Maybe I was just all week. I was just bargaining and pleading with you. I was just like, if you just drink this, please. If you love me, you will drink this.
Oh, that's what you had to say?
It was rough.
Oh my gosh.
You just didn't want it. Like, but I don't blame you, you know?
I mean, no, there's nothing to blame, but for me, who like is such a vicious predator around food, for me to be denying even a milkshake, I mean, anything, that's just absolutely insane. Clearly something is wrong.
So we get home with the medication. You take one, you go to sleep, and I am just...
And this is Vicodin.
This is Vicodin. Yes.
Okay.
So like this should actually be helping. You know, they'd sent us home when you first started chemo with like the nerve pain stuff, you know, the lower, you know, less addictive, less opioid type of things. We're like, finally, when they saw you, they were like, okay, let's give them the good stuff. So you take a Vicodin, you go lay down to sleep, and something in me is just like, call a friend, phone a friend in this moment, you know, reach out to someone just for support, just like, hey, today was a crazy day. So I called one of my best friends, Jess, who is married to one of your best friends, Mike, who you went to high school with.
Yeah, we're all very close. I mean, Mike and I went to high school together. We've lived together out here. I officiated their wedding. I mean, these are super close friends of ours. So, okay, I'm glad you called her because she's always very reasonable and comforting at the same time.
Yeah, so at this point, I remember sitting on the couch in the office and like watching the sunset out the window and telling Jess like, oh my God, this was crazy. And then this happened. Doing the right thing. That was part of it too. It was just wanting to call someone and make sure I was doing the right thing. I felt like I'd done that a bit with your family, and your family, they have a lot of experience dealing with this stuff a little bit more, like the medical system. And I just needed a more, not neutral, but just someone else's perspective versus always going to your family.
Well, we should probably tell you this. Like, you've never been in the hospital for any prolonged period of time. Whereas growing up, because I had such horrible skin issues, I had spent like a week in the hospital multiple times as a child. And that was something that you never really experienced, even with your family, really, right? I mean, that just wasn't a thing for you all.
Yeah. My mom, I remember my mom when she gave birth to my two sisters, like she was in the hospital, but I cannot remember, you know, she had breast cancer. She maybe was in the hospital for a day or two then, but like, yeah, it's just, there was never a ton of medical care needed.
Yeah, I mean, lucky you, because I know that system inside and out. I've been in hospitals my entire life, not just for myself, but for other people. So yeah, I wish I didn't know what that was like.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to keep going.
Yep.
So I'm talking to Jess and just telling her everything and like trying to get her opinion. And she was basically like, you're doing the best you can, you know, trust yourself. And like, he saw doctors today, which was also, you know, at no point was an oncologist like rush him to the emergency room. Like, they sent us on our way. They gave you fluids and sent us on our way. So I take this moment, and then I just go make some dinner, start to chill out, go, okay, today's been a tough day, but I'm glad it's over. It was not over.
No, this is all pieced together through me, through you and other people. But so I get out of bed I went to bed about 4 p.m. I get out of bed about 4 hours later, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I come out of the bedroom. What happens next?
You come stumbling out of the bedroom and you go, I gotta pee. And I'm like, okay, Alex, well, you could have used the bathroom that's attached to our bedroom that you've just walked by. And you go and you start peeing in the kitchen.
Where in the kitchen?
I think in the sink.
Oh, man. I mean, in college, I peed in a lot of sinks. So
true.
Not foreign.
So then and I go, no, over here. And I basically try to like herd you over towards the other bathroom, which you somehow miss, and then continue walking into my office and then pee on the wall in my office.
Jesus Christ.
At which point I'm then able to, like, you've now been in every room in our home except for the second bathroom. I'm now able to get you into that second bathroom, which you're now, at least you're in the bathroom and you're peeing, but you're missing the toilet. There's no sense of like aim or where to go.
Right. So I jizzed into a very small plastic cup effortlessly, but now I cannot even aim into a large toilet bowl with my urine. Great.
So in the process of this, no surprise, you got pee all over yourself. So I take your clothes off because you can't, my goal is to just get you back to bed at this point. That's in this moment, my thought is get you back to bed. Like that, we had 4 hours where you were good and you were sleeping. So just got to get the clothes off you. You're in a bathroom, we'll shower, get you back to bed. And then so we get the clothes off you, and you, again, you're in so much pain, you can barely walk. You sit down on the toilet because you want to get off your feet, because really the pain is in the soles of your feet. So you sit down, and that's when I go, Alex, what's your name? What year it is? And you do not have the answers.
Oof.
Yeah, you knew your first name. You did not know your last name, the year, or the president.
Yikes. Okay.
That was when all the alarm bells went off. When I go, okay, we need to go to the hospital. That was my moment. I texted the nurse practitioner, and he said, yeah, definitely take him. If you take him back to Hollywood Presbyterian, which is where the oncologist's office was, they'll have, they'll page the doctor. They'll, have at least some records or there's some continuation there of what's going on, versus take him to a different hospital.
And we were familiar with Hollywood Press at that point as well. It is the closest hospital, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's other that are probably about equally close. As I've said before, do not take me there ever.
No, we're never going. No, Hollywood Press is not. It's where homeless people go to scream. It is not a place where you want to heal in any sort of way.
No. But again, you were already going through the process there. It made sense at the time. So this is where I should have called an ambulance. As soon as you go, someone should go to the hospital, and they're not easily able and willing to get themselves into a car for you to take them. Call an ambulance, friend. Yes, it might be expensive, but if you need healthcare and emergency services, it's important. We'll get to it later, but you could have died in that amount of time.
Sure. Yeah, of course. And I mean, that's another problem with our healthcare. People don't want to take ambulances, is what you just said. You're like, ooh, that could be expensive. I don't think I need to do that right now. So what do you do instead?
So I go, okay, well, I got to drive him to the hospital. How am I going to, I got to put clothes on him, and I got to drive him to the hospital. For some reason, again, I don't remember making this decision, but I called Jess, and I am so grateful that I had called her 4 hours earlier and explained the entire situation, because I didn't need to explain anything at that point. I was just like, I got to get Alex to the hospital. And she was just like, we're on our way. And her and Mike came. They were here in 20 minutes, which for Los Angeles traffic at that time of day is ridiculous.
They live in Santa Monica. We live in Hollywood. And, there's an old line in Clueless when Dan Hedaya says, everywhere in LA takes 20 minutes. That is not true anymore. It might have been true in 1995. It is not true anymore.
So they're on their way. I'm all I can think is how we have to get pants on you, because we got to get you to the hospital. Somehow I managed to get pants on you. In reality, we did not have to get pants on you. You don't have to put pants on someone to take them to the hospital.
No, go to the hospital naked. Start a party. Have an orgy.
So I get the pants on you. You come out here and you lay on the couch, and you're basically down at that point. And I realize, okay, well, I probably have a few minutes. I should take the dogs out. It's 8 or 9 o'clock at night. We're probably going to be at the emergency room for quite a while. So I take our two pugs out, and that's just as when Mike and Jess were arriving. They come in. Mike is a personal trainer, so he's good at helping people and moving people and getting you to move your muscles. And it was not easy, and it definitely took, 15, 20 minutes for him to convince you and to pep talk you through getting off the couch.
I have a very vague memory of me standing up and him telling me to sit down. And I said, how? And he goes, you just put your butt down. And I was like, but how do I do that? And I feel like in my mind, whether I made that up or not through pieced together stories, I feel like that was the moment where he was like, fuck, this is worse than I thought it was.
Yeah. So what we did was we got my office chair, my desk chair, which is on wheels, and we got you to sit in that. And then we basically wheeled you down the apartment hallway to the elevator, down to the parking garage, which is actually pretty smart if anybody ever needs to use that one.
Yeah, good move. Way to have an office chair with wheels.
Yeah. So we, again, getting you in the car was nearly impossible, just because I think you were swelling and you were in pain so much at that point that bending was hard. It was just a struggle. But we get you in my car. Mike jumps in the back of my car. Jess drives their car over to the hospital. And we get you finally to the emergency room. Again, finally in professional medical people's care and out of me being your number one caregiver in that moment.
Yeah, because obviously you had made the decision to not take me immediately, which, I put no blame on you for that, because you don't know what to do in that situation. You don't know how bad of a state that I'm actually in, because yes, I just peed all over your office wall, but maybe I'm just delirious from taking too much Vicodin. We don't know what's actually happening.
Well, so these things that I rationalized to myself and have since this day happened was, one, we went to see your oncologist that morning, and at no point was someone like, admit this man to the hospital. Right. So that was my sign that 6 hours ago, you were not that bad off. It was just the moment you could not answer those questions, as I'd been instructed by, your nurse practitioner. Now is the time to take him to the hospital. And from then, again, could have called an ambulance. We maybe would have gotten there 40 minutes sooner. That wasn't a huge amount of time between the decision to go and actually getting you there. The ambulance would have, again, saved a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that this whole episode basically takes place in a single day because, I mean, so much happened. I have basically no recollection of any of it other than what you, Mike, and Jess have told me. And I mean, there's little flashes in my brain of moments that happened, but it's just, they're so foreign to me of like what the actual whole timeline is that all I have are these very bit moments. And I mean, so, okay, catch us up. We're checked into the emergency room.
We get to the emergency room. If you ever want to get quick service at the emergency room, show up with a cancer patient who's getting chemo who doesn't know his own name. Because they act very quickly. They triaged you, they brought you back. Like, we weren't not sitting very long in the waiting room of the emergency room with, the people with like bloody noses and
broken arms even. I mean, I've definitely had some times when I've had injuries and I've gone to a emergency room and they're like, what is that? A broken knee? You're not an emergency whatsoever. Just sit there for a while. So turns out cancer patient who doesn't know his name, that's the ticket.
Yeah. So we get back, they admit you to the emergency room and you ended up in like a little private room, which probably was great for us. They probably saw how bad you were and was like, okay, yeah, we need to keep him separate to not, upset other people.
I believe they call it the champagne room.
Yeah. The thing about emergency room doctors is they're trained to deal with like emergency room things like broken bones. They don't really know about chemotherapy treatment and the side effects of that. And, again, I'm still thinking that's what this is. So they, they're, what kind of chemo is he on? And like, I had all the answers to this sort of stuff, but it doesn't, that wasn't their knowledge base, and they can look things up and they can call the oncologist, but at no point, it still was just, we really didn't have any answers. I think it's probably 10 o'clock at night at this point. Mike and Jess weren't allowed back, but they're out in their car, right out in front of the hospital, and ultimately go tell them, okay, he's in their care. They've got an IV in him. They're giving him fluids. They're giving him antibiotics. Like, there's no reason for you guys to stay here all night. And like, they totally would have, but it was one of those things where I was like, I'm probably going to be here all night. When we initially started this, I thought, oh yeah, we're going to be in the emergency room all night. And like, then we'll come home in the morning and it'll be exhausting, because that's always been my experience with emergency rooms. I'm quickly starting to realize, just based on like the way the doctors and the nurses are acting, and they can tell how concerned I am, and you not being able to answer these basic questions are very concerning. So maybe around midnight, 2 a.m., they say, we're going to admit him to the hospital. And I was like, and that's when I was like, shit, okay. Again, my experience, I've never happened that. I've only been in situations where we go to the emergency room and then we go home.
But remember, I don't do anything in moderation. So if I'm going to the emergency room, you better fucking believe I'm getting admitted. I will accept nothing less.
We had to wait for a bed to open. That was the next step. So I'm just like on like some plastic chair in the emergency room, like huddled under a blanket, waiting for whatever's going to happen next.
And where am I at this point? Just like in the back in the emergency room?
You're in the bed. No, I was in the room with you.
Oh, okay.
And you were just, you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there.
Part of me was there.
Yeah,
my body was there.
You weren't really participating so much, but you were there. So finally, they get you a bed, and they wheel you up to, and I went with you. I went with you up to the room on like, I think it was like the 4th floor. I don't remember at that point. I was exhausted. It was just terrible. They get you, they basically say, okay, you can't be here anymore. The visiting hours start in the morning or whatever. And I was like, okay, great. Like, honestly, at that point, I was just like exhausted, and I knew I needed to go home and there was nothing you were out of it and there was nothing I could do for you.
You had yourself quite the day. I mean, the emotional drain of that kind of worry is so exhausting. I mean, it's not just the physical, like I've been up longer than I'm used to being up, but because we've seen plenty of sunrises in our day, but it's you worrying about me all day, having gone from the oncologist to the center to get the PET scan, back home, having me pee all over everything, having to call our friends, get to this emergency room now. I mean, there is so much going on that is going to tax your system that, the best thing you can do at some point, 4 or 5 in the morning, get home and get some fucking sleep.
Yeah.
Did you take some of my Vicodin?
No, I didn't need it. I was just bleary-eyed. So I leave you in the care of the hospital workers. And I head home to what is pretty much a mess in our house. You mean
the pee didn't magically clean itself?
Yeah, and I know I cleaned it. Like I may not have done like a full clean job, but I just like couldn't go to sleep in my own house if it was just like.
Did you use the spray that we use for the dogs?
Oh yeah. I mean, any sort of human, the nature's miracle. Like if it's blood, if it's poop, if it's whatever, it doesn't matter, human or dog. Like that does it.
So next time you vomit, go ahead and break out Nature's Miracle. Not a sponsor of this podcast yet.
So I got home, brought the chair was at the office chair was in the parking garage. I bring that up. I start cleaning up the pee, and I called your sister.
Okay, because my sister is a nurse practitioner. She has a lot of knowledge, obviously, of what's going on. She's also extremely level-headed in these situations where she has often advised us, hey, here's what I would be doing. Here's what you should be doing. Here's how you advocate for your own care. Because that is something we had to learn a lot about when I was getting all those other tests, like leading up to like finding out what kind of cancer I had, is you have to fight for yourself and you have to speak up to really get what you need.
Yeah, and she's a great person for that. Just, I did not have it in me at that point to call every member of your family. So her being sort of the representative for your family at that point was very helpful. And so it's probably like the sun is coming up at this point, and I crawl into bed with the dogs and I sleep for a couple hours, and that is how the worst day of my life ends.
I mean, it sounds, I was there. But was I really there? No, I wasn't. So I have no knowledge of what you're going through in this moment. So I'm now in this hospital. You have gone through, you've gotten a couple hours of sleep. You're back at home. And when do you come back to the hospital?
As soon as I woke up. I don't even know about like visiting hours or whatever, but I slept and then I took the dogs out. This is my life, right? Sleep, take the dogs out, get to the hospital. And I went back just because I had so many questions, and I knew like doctors and like, when they admitted you at 5 a.m., nobody was there. It was like asleep. Everyone was asleep. But by 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., whenever I got there the next day, there were doctors there.
Really? Because I imagine like 3, 4 in the morning at Hollywood Press, that is prime hours. Like the crackheads are coming in because they cut themselves on a glass pipe. The partiers are coming back from downtown that have overdosed on ecstasy. Like that seems really prime time for Hollywood Press.
Well, that's like the emergency room, not the...
True. Okay. Yes. Because now we're actually in the hospital.
Yes.
That's a different story.
Yeah. So that night in the emergency room, that was the end of the worst day of my life, but it was just day one. Day one of 33 days in the hospital.
Yeah, we thought the cancer diagnosis was the scariest one I would have that year, but turns out we were dead wrong.
And we'll get into all of that in the next episode of Hopefully Kidding.
Bum, bum, bum.